60 million years before the present moment, a nameless star on the outer periphery of the Sculptor galaxy exhaled its final thermal breath. This was not the violent, operatic catastrophe of a supernova that would have outshone its entire galactic neighbourhood. Instead, it was a quiet, inexorable surrender to the laws of entropy. The star, a modest sphere of burning plasma that had endured for billions of years, finally exhausted the nuclear fuel within its core. As its internal pressure faltered, the outer layers began to drift away like smoke in a windless room, cooling and thinning until they were little more than a ghost of their former brilliance. In those final moments of transition, a specific sequence of radio waves detached itself from the cooling embers. This packet of energy, a thermal signature of a dying world, began its journey into the great abyss of the cosmos. It was a message without a sender and without a recipient, an unaddressed envelope cast into the dark currents of the void. For eons, this sequence of waves has traversed the silent stretches of the vacuum, moving at the absolute speed limit of the universe. To look at this energy packet is to witness the scale paradox in its most haunting form. The information contained within the wave is fragile, a delicate ripple in the electromagnetic field that could be unravelled by the slightest interference. Yet, it possesses a longevity that shames the civilizations of flesh and bone. While empires rose and fell into oblivion on the small rocky planets it passed, the wave continued, unchanged and indifferent. It moved through the empty gaps between galaxies, where the density of matter is so low that a single atom might occupy a space the size of a cathedral. In these vast reaches, the silence is total. There is no atmosphere to carry sound, no warmth to stir the stillness, and no light save for the distant, ancient glow of the primordial fire that birthed the cosmos. The journey of this energy packet is a testament to the terrifying architecture of the universe. To cross the distance between the Sculptor constellation and our own local group of galaxies, the wave had to survive the passage through clouds of cold dust. These nebulae, the remnants of even older stars, are the graveyards of the cosmos. They are vast, dark tapestries that stretch across light years, capable of swallowing entire solar systems in their velvet folds. A single collision with a dense grain of silicate or carbon would have scattered the wave, turning its coherent information into meaningless noise. But the wave is a sentinel of the past, a phantom of a star that no longer exists, and it slipped through the gaps in the dust like a needle through silk. It moved with a mechanical precision, governed by the ruthless laws of physics that dictate how energy must propagate through a vacuum. As the wave travelled, the very fabric of space began to stretch. This is the inexorable expansion of the cosmos, a mechanism that pulls the galaxies apart and lengthens the journey of every photon and radio wave that dares to cross the abyss. The wavelength of our signal began to shift, stretching out into a lower frequency, a process that mirrors the slow decay of memory. What was once a vibrant thermal signature of a living sun became a long, melancholic drone. This is the symphony of the void, a low-frequency hum that carries the history of 1 billion dead suns across the epochal distances. The information is still there, encoded in the peaks and valleys of the wave, but it is buried beneath the weight of time and the stretching of the universe itself. Consider the isolation of this energy packet. It is a solitary traveller in an ocean of nothingness. If we were to zoom out from the wave, we would see it as a microscopic point of light against a backdrop of infinite darkness. The scale of the distance it has travelled is so vast that human language struggles to contain it. 60 million light-years is a distance that transcends our biological understanding. If a human being were to attempt this journey at the speed of the wave, they would see the rise and fall of countless species, the birth of new stars, and the slow, grinding collision of entire galaxies. And yet, to the wave itself, time does completed not exist. In the frame of a photon, there is no duration between the moment it is ignited by the star and the moment it is devoured by a receiver. The 60 million years are compressed into a single, eternal instant. This is the cruelty of the cosmic machine. It creates beauty on a scale that we can barely perceive, only to subject it to the slow unravelling of entropy. The star that sent this wave is now a white dwarf, a cold and dense remnant that will slowly fade into a black cinder over the coming trillions of years. Its planets, if it ever had any, have likely been stripped away or frozen into silent monuments of ice. All that remains of that entire solar system, with all its potential histories and forgotten tragedies, is this thin sequence of radio waves moving through the void. It is a fragile bridge between the past and the future, a ghost that refuses to be laid to rest. As the wave approaches the outer reaches of our own Milky Way, it encounters the first signs of a crowded neighbourhood. The density of stars increases, and the gravitational tides of the galaxy begin to tug at the geometry of space. The wave must navigate the complex topography of our galactic disk, passing by the burning brilliance of blue giants and the smouldering embers of red dwarfs. It is a journey through a crowded forest after millions of years of wandering the open desert. The risk of interference grows. The radio noise of our own sun, the magnetic storms of Jupiter, and the chaotic chatter of a young technological civilization all threaten to drown out this ancient whispered secret from the Sculptor constellation. Yet, if the wave survives these final hurdles, it will eventually wash over a small, blue planet on the edge of a spiral arm. It will strike a metallic dish or a sensitive antenna, and for a brief moment, the energy that left a dying star 60 million years ago will be converted back into an electrical signal. This is the existential pivot of our story. The wave, which has spent eons in the cold, silent abyss, finally finds a witness. The information it carries, the thermal signature of a star that vanished before the first primates walked the Earth, is finally unravelled by a mind capable of contemplating its journey. We are the recipients of these unaddressed envelopes. We are the ones who stand on the shore of the cosmic ocean, catching the faint ripples of storms that happened on the other side of the universe before our world was even born. There is a profound, melancholic optimism in this realization. Though the universe is a ruthless machine of decay and distance, it is also a tapestry of interconnected events. The light of a dead star can spark a thought in the mind of a living being. The fragility of the information is precisely what makes it precious. In a cosmos that is mostly empty space and cold dust, the fact that a single radio wave can travel 60 million years to tell us it once existed is a miracle of physics. The journey from the Sculptor galaxy is a reminder of our own place in the epoch of the stars. We are a brief flicker of consciousness in a universe that measures time in billions of years and distance in trillions of leagues. We are the sentinels who watch the void, the ones who listen to the silence and find the hidden symphonies within it. As this radio wave completes its journey, it ceases to be a mere physical phenomenon. It becomes a bridge. It becomes history, and as it is absorbed into the wires and circuits of our instruments, the star that died 60 million years ago finds its final, fleeting immortality within the consciousness of the witness. The void is no longer just an abyss. It is a library of light and energy, waiting for those with the patience to listen. But the arrival is not a simple union between the void and the witness. As this ancient messenger, this radio wave that began its journey 60 million years in the past, enters the local neighbourhood of our sun, it discovers a world that has become a deafening fortress of its own making. To see our planet from the perspective of the cosmos is to witness a transformation that has occurred in the blink of a cosmic eye. For 4 billion years, the Earth was a silent listener, a dark stone reflecting the light of its star, absorbing the radiation of the heavens without reply. It was a mirror held up to the abyss, a quiet participant in the slow dance of the solar system. But in the last 100 years, a mere heartbeat in the history of the galaxy, the silence has been shattered. We have replaced the primordial quiet with a vibrant, artificial shell of digital whispers. From the perspective of a radio telescope, the Earth does not look like a blue marble. It looks like a supernova. It is a blinding sphere of electromagnetic energy, radiating a chaotic symphony into the surrounding void. We have built a second atmosphere, a shroud of information that surrounds the globe in a dense, vibrating tapestry of our own design. This is the scale paradox of the modern age. We seek the whispers of the universe, the faint echoes of the beginning of time, while simultaneously building a cage of noise so thick that the heavens are being drowned out by our own internal chatter. Consider the journey of the wave from the Sculptor constellation. It has travelled through the vacuum for 60 million years, surviving the expansion of space and the gravitational traps of 1,000 star systems. It is a singular, fragile piece of information, a testament to a star that died when the first tiny mammals were only beginning to find their footing in a world left behind by giants. And yet, as it reaches the threshold of our world, it must compete with the billions of digital signals that we pump into the air every second. It must fight through the invisible smog of cellular networks, the frantic pulsing of global positioning satellites, and the relentless stream of entertainment and commerce that defines our era. The ancient signal is a ghost trying to be heard in the middle of a hurricane. We live in the epoch of the crowded sky. Tens of thousands of satellites now orbit the Earth, acting as mechanical sentinels that relay our mundane desires across the continents. They are the iron moths circling the flame of human connectivity. Above them, the radar of 10,000 airports scans the horizon, throwing jagged bolts of energy into the sky. Below them, the surface of the planet is a glowing grid of microwave towers and wireless routers, each one contributing a tiny persistent note to the global roar. This is the ruthless machine of human progress, an inexorable expansion of our presence into the electromagnetic spectrum. The contrast is staggering. The ancient radio wave from the Sculptor galaxy carries the thermal signature of a cosmic catastrophe, a story of stellar birth and death written in the language of fundamental physics. Our digital whispers carry the fleeting thoughts of a species in a hurry. We send pulses of light through fibre optic cables and bounce radio waves off the ionosphere to tell each other of our fleeting moods, our momentary successes and our trivial concerns. 1 billion hours of video are watched every day, 1 trillion messages are sent every year. The volume of our noise is so great that it has begun to leak out into the stars, a bubble of artificial light expanding at the speed of causality, announcing our presence to an indifferent universe. But there is a tragedy in this abundance. In our quest to connect with one another, we have become increasingly disconnected from the cosmos. The dark, silent skies that inspired our ancestors are disappearing. The stars that served as the first map and the first clock are being eclipsed by the glow of our cities and the interference of our machines. We are the first generation of humans who can look at the sky and see more of our own creations than the ancient structures of the universe. We are becoming deaf to the stars because we cannot stop talking to ourselves. This digital shell is not just a barrier of noise, it is a monument to our isolation. We have created a global brain, a nervous system that spans the entire planet, but it is a system that is turned inward. The vast, cold abyss of the void, which once demanded our awe and our terror, has been replaced by the comforting, flickering light of a screen. We are the architects of our own oblivion, building a world that is so loud and so bright that we can no longer perceive the subtle rhythms of the galaxy. The ancient radio wave, having survived 60 million years of solitude, finds itself in a world that is terrified of silence, and yet the witness remains. Within the heart of this electromagnetic storm, we still build our cathedrals of science. We construct massive metallic dishes in the remote deserts and the high plateaus, searching for the quietest corners of the planet where the digital roar is muffled. We design instruments of exquisite sensitivity, capable of distinguishing the whisper of a dead star from the shout of a nearby television tower. These are our silent outposts, the sentinels who watch the void in spite of the noise. They are the expressions of a deep human longing to understand our place in the tapestry of time. The scale paradox reminds us that the smaller signal can carry the greatest meaning. The billions of gigabytes of data that circulate through our networks today will likely be forgotten within a century, lost to the decay of hardware and the changing of formats. But the radio wave from the Sculptor galaxy will remain a part of the history of the universe. It is a piece of objective reality, a remnant of a physical event that shaped the evolution of a galaxy. While our digital whispers are fleeting and ephemeral, the cosmic signal is eternal and inexorable. It does not demand our attention, it simply exists, waiting for a mind to reach out and unravel its secrets. We stand at a crossroads in the history of the witness. We have the technology to hear the beginning of time, to map the distribution of dark matter, and to see the light of the first stars. But we also have the power to drown it all out. Our world is becoming a sphere of mirrors, reflecting our own image back at us, hiding the depths of the void behind a veil of our own making. The challenge of the present epoch is to remain quiet enough to listen, to find the gaps in the noise where the ancient stories can still be told. As the wave from Sculptor is finally absorbed by our instruments, it marks the end of a journey that spanned a geological age. It is a moment of profound significance, a bridge between a dead sun and a living mind. It reminds us that despite our noise, despite our distractions, and despite the thick shell of digital whispers that we have wrapped around our world, we are still part of the cosmos. We are still the ones who catch the ripples. We are still the sentinels of the abyss, waiting in the darkness for the next message from the void, hoping that in the midst of our own cacophony, we have not forgotten how to hear the silence. The information that has spent eons in the cold, silent abyss finally finds its rest, even as we continue to scream into the night. It is a fragile victory of curiosity over convenience, a reminder that the universe is far larger than the world we have built for ourselves. In this realization, there is a profound, melancholic optimism. We are small, we are loud, but we are still listening. The year is 2006. In the scorched interior of New South Wales, Australia, the air shimmers with a heat that feels as ancient as the stones beneath. Here, far from the luminous scars of the great coastal cities, the landscape is a study in stillness. The eucalyptus trees stand like skeletal guardians over a rust-coloured earth, and the only sound is the rhythmic mechanical pulse of a machine that does not belong to the biological world. This is the Australia Telescope Compact Array. 6 massive white parabolic dishes, each weighing several hundred tons, sit atop a rail track that stretches across the plains of Narrabri. To a casual observer, these structures are mere monuments of industrial engineering, but to the small assembly of minds gathered here, they are the most sensitive ears ever turned toward the heavens. Among them is Dr. Ray Norris, a man whose career has been defined by a refusal to accept the limits of the visible. He and his colleagues are embarking on a mission of staggering ambition, the 3i Atlas project. Their goal is not to look at the bright, the violent, or the obvious. They are not seeking the blazing fire of nearby suns or the dramatic spirals of neighbouring galaxies that dominate our night sky. Instead, they are reaching for the ghosts. They are searching for the faint population of the universe, the distant ancient flickers of light that have been travelling through the void for billions of years, losing their energy and their identity until they are little more than a whisper on the edge of oblivion. Here, the scale paradox reveals itself in its most haunting form. To capture a signal of such profound fragility, we require the most brutal application of human artifice. We must construct thousands of tons of steel, precision engineered to the millimetre, and cool our electronic sensors to temperatures that rival the freezing depths of interstellar space. We build these gargantuan sentinels to detect a unit of power so infinitesimal it defies the human imagination, the micro-Jansky. To understand the scale of this endeavour, one must first comprehend the Jansky itself. It is a measurement of flux density, a way of quantifying the strength of a radio signal reaching our planet. A single Jansky is already a testament to the emptiness of the cosmos, a whisper from a distant star. But the 3i Atlas project is seeking signals that are 10 microjanskys in strength. This is a quantity of energy so small that if you were to collect the radio waves from every distant galaxy detected by this array over the course of 1,000 years, the the total energy gathered would not be enough to move a single grain of sand by the width of a human hair. We are using the weight of mountains to catch the touch of a shadow. This is the essence of our quest. We occupy a narrow sliver of existence between the gargantuan and the minuscule. We inhabit a world of solid matter and heavy gravity, yet we are driven by a desperate need to catalogue the ethereal. Dr. Norris and his team understand that they are operating against a ticking clock. The universe is not getting any quieter. As our own civilization expands, we wrap our planet in a suffocating blanket of electromagnetic noise. Every television broadcast, every cellular signal, and every satellite crossing the firmament is a shout that drowns out the ancient stories written in the radio spectrum. The Three-Eye Atlas is a desperate attempt to listen before the silence is lost forever. The researchers move through the control rooms with a quiet, practiced intensity. They are the cartographers of the invisible. They are mapping the distribution of faint radio galaxies, objects that existed when the universe was less than half its current age. By cataloguing these distant sentinels, they are trying to unravel the mystery of how galaxies grow, how black holes ignite the gas of the primordial void, and how the large-scale structure of the cosmos took shape. Each data point on their screens is a remnant of a cosmic catastrophe, or a slow, inexorable birth that occurred eons before the Earth was a grain of dust in a protoplanetary disk. The project is an act of profound witness. It acknowledges that the vast majority of the universe is not comprised of the bright and the bold, but of the dim and the distant. To ignore the faint population is to ignore the true history of the cosmos. It would be like trying to understand the history of humanity by only reading the biographies of kings, while ignoring the billions of quiet lives that actually built the world. These faint radio sources are the true citizens of the deep past. They carry the signature of the early epochs, the era when the first stars began to pierce the darkness of the cosmic dawn. As the sun sets over the Australian outback, painting the sky in bruised purples and deep oranges, the 6 antennas of the array continue their silent vigil. They do not sleep, they do not tire. They are the extensions of our own curiosity, reaching out into the abyss to touch the face of the eternal. The contrast is jarring. The prehistoric landscape of the scrubland, where life clings to existence in the dust, and the hyper-advanced technology of the receivers, which are currently sensing the movement of electrons in a galaxy 12 billion light-years away. It is a bridge between the local and the universal, between the ephemeral and the infinite. The work of Dr. Norris and his team is a reminder of the loneliness of the Sentinel. They sit in their remote outpost surrounded by the vastness of the Australian bush, listening to the static of the stars. It is a melancholic occupation. They are documenting a universe that is fading, a record of events that concluded long ago. The light they detect is the terminal sigh of dying processes, and yet there is an inherent optimism in this labour. By building the Three-Eye Atlas, we are asserting that these faint signals matter. We are declaring that the history of a distant, dim galaxy is a part of our own history. We are the only part of the universe that has developed the capacity to look back at itself and ask where it came from. This realization brings with it a heavy responsibility. If we do not listen now, if we allow our own digital cacophony to overwhelm the cosmic signal, we lose our connection to the deep time of the abyss. We become trapped in the present, a species with no memory of its celestial origins. The Australia Telescope Compact Array is our shield against this amnesia. It is the instrument that allows us to pierce the veil of our own noise and find the quiet truths that lie beyond. The data streams in, millions of bits per second, a digital tapestry of the ancient sky. Within this torrent of information, the 10 microjansky signals are hidden, like individual needles in a haystack the size of a planet. It takes months of processing, of filtering, and of mathematical rigour to extract a single source from the background radiation of the cosmos. But when that source finally emerges, it is a moment of transcendence. A distant point of light is given a name, a position, and a place in the story of everything. We are the witnesses of the void. we are the ones who have decided that the silence of the outback is the perfect laboratory for hearing the roar of the beginning of time. In the year 2006, beneath the Southern Cross, the Sentinels continue their work. They are the quiet guardians of our cosmic heritage, ensuring that even as we scream into the night, we never truly stop listening to the whispers of the universe. The scale paradox remains our greatest challenge and our greatest tool, reminding us that to understand the infinite, we must first learn to appreciate the smallest, faintest, and most fragile parts of the dark. Yet, this fragile silence, this hard-won sanctuary of the Australian outback, is under siege. The very stillness that allows the antennas to peer into the primordial void is being systematically dismantled by the relentless march of our own progress. We are witnessing the dawn of a new kind of chaos, a technological tragedy that threatens to drown out the ancient whispers of the cosmos in a flood of our own making. This is the interference riot, a cacophony of electromagnetic noise that is rapidly closing the windows we have spent centuries trying to open. To understand the scale of this catastrophe, one must first appreciate the staggering delicacy of the signals these sentinels seek to capture. Imagine a stadium packed with 100,000 screaming fans, their voices merging into a singular, deafening roar that shakes the very foundations of the earth. Now imagine that in the middle of this riotous assembly, a single sewing pin is dropped onto the concrete floor from a height of 1 inch. The task of the radio astronomer is to hear the sound of that pin hitting the ground, to isolate its tiny metallic click from the overwhelming wall of sound produced by the crowd. This is the reality of searching for a 10 microyansky source. The cosmic signal is so faint, so utterly fragile, that it is almost an act of faith to believe it can be detected at all. But the stadium is no longer empty, and the crowd is no longer distant. We have brought the riot with us, carrying it in our pockets and launching it into the heavens by the thousands. Every cellular device, every wireless router, every digital broadcast is a scream in the radio spectrum, a blinding flash of light in a frequency range where the universe is trying to speak in a whisper. This is radio frequency interference, the unintended consequence of a world that demands to be perpetually connected. Our atmosphere, once a clear lens through which we could view the depths of the abyss, is becoming a thick, opaque fog of human-made radiation. The tragedy is compounded by our recent triumphs in the realm of orbital engineering. In the last few years, the nature of the night sky has been fundamentally altered. We have begun to populate the low Earth orbit with massive constellations of satellites, metallic swarms designed to bring high-speed internet to every corner of the globe. Companies like the Starlink network have launched thousands of these sentinels into the void, with plans to launch tens of thousands more in the coming decade. From the perspective of human connectivity, this is a marvel of the modern epoch, a bridge across the digital divide. But from the perspective of the astronomer, it is an inexorable curtain being drawn across the stars. These satellites do not merely reflect the light of the sun, creating streaks of brilliance that mar our optical photographs. They are active broadcasters, raining down a constant stream of radio energy onto the surface of the planet. For a telescope designed to sense the movement of electrons in a galaxy billions of light years away, the passage of a single satellite is like a searchlight being pointed directly into an eye accustomed to the dark. As these constellations grow, the quiet windows of the radio spectrum, the specific frequencies where the cosmos is most transparent, are being crowded out. The symphony of the stars is being devoured by the hum of the machine. There is a profound irony in this development. Our desire to connect with one another, to link every human consciousness in a global neural network of information, is the very thing that is severing our connection to the deeper reality of the cosmos. We're building a digital shell around our world, a shimmering cage of silicon and sapphire that keeps our gaze fixed firmly on the local and the immediate. We are becoming a species that can talk to itself with near instantaneous speed, but can no longer hear the ancient testimony of the universe that birthed us. It is a trade of the eternal for the ephemeral, a sacrifice of the infinite on the altar of the convenient. The mechanism of this interference is as cold and indifferent as the laws of physics themselves. Radio waves do not care about their origin. To an antenna, A signal from a navigation satellite is indistinguishable from the remnant glow of a dying star, except that the satellite is billions of times more powerful. The vast empty spaces between the stars are being filled with the detritus of our digital age. We are unravelling the tapestry of the night sky, replacing the complex subtle patterns of the primordial gas clouds with the repetitive artificial pulses of binary code. As the number of satellites in orbit climbs towards 60,000 and beyond, the challenge for the Australia Telescope Compact Array becomes nearly insurmountable. The researchers must now spend as much time filtering out the noise of humanity as they do analysing the secrets of the void. They are forced to engage in a constant, desperate game of hide and seek, searching for the gaps in the satellite coverage, the fleeting moments when the riot lulls and the pin drop can still be heard. But those moments are becoming rarer. The epoch of the quiet sky is ending, replaced by an era of permanent electromagnetic smog. This is the scale paradox in its most cruel form. We have developed the technology to see back to the beginning of time, to witness the ignition of the first stars and the formation of the first black holes. We have built instruments of such exquisite sensitivity that they can measure the heartbeat of the universe. And yet, at the very moment of our greatest capability, we are blinding ourselves with the brilliance of our own ingenuity. We are like a child who has finally learned to read, only to find that the lights in the library have been turned out. The loss is not merely scientific, it is existential. To lose our view of the deep universe is to lose our sense of place in the grand narrative of existence. If we cannot see the distant galaxies, we forget that we are made of the same stardust that fuels their fires. If we cannot hear the echoes of the beginning of time, we lose the context for our own fleeting lives. We risk becoming a lonely sentinel on a crowded planet, surrounded by billions of voices but unable to hear the silence of the eternal. The interference riot is more than a technical hurdle. It is a spiritual veil, a barrier between the witness and the void. Beneath the Southern Cross, the 6 antennas continue their work, but the task grows heavier with every passing year. The data streams are no longer pure, they are scarred by the signatures of our satellites, the remnants of our broadcasts, and the persistent hum of a world that refuses to be quiet. The sentinels are fighting an uphill battle against the tide of entropy, trying to preserve the fading memories of the cosmos before they are lost forever in the oblivion of our own noise. They are the guardians of a diminishing resource, the silence that allows us to transcend our terrestrial bonds and touch the face of the infinite. If we do not find a way to balance our need for connection with our need for contemplation, we may find ourselves trapped in a world where the only thing we can hear is the echo of our own voices, screaming into a darkness that no longer speaks back. Yet, despite the encroaching ocean of artificial noise, the sentinels of the Australia Telescope Compact Array focus their attention upon a singular hallowed frequency, 1.4 gigahertz. In the cold, silent language of the cosmos, this is the vibration of the most fundamental element. It is the heartbeat of neutral hydrogen, the primordial building block from which every star, every planet, and every conscious mind was eventually forged. To tune an instrument to 1.4 gigahertz is to listen to the very breath of the early universe. It is a narrow keyhole through which we might glimpse the foundations of reality, provided we have the patience to filter out the cacophony of our own making. By isolating this specific channel, the researchers are attempting to reach back across the abyss of time to a period of unprecedented celestial violence and beauty. They seek the epoch known as the Cosmic Noon. This was a time, roughly 10 billion years ago, when the universe was a frantic nursery of creation. During this era, stars were being ignited at a rate hundreds of times faster than what we observe in the local heavens today. The galaxies were not the stately spiralling islands of calm we see in our own neighbourhood. They were turbulent, gas-rich behemoths, gorging themselves on the surrounding cosmic filaments and erupting with the brilliant blue light of newborn suns. To find the cosmic noon, one must look beyond the familiar. One must look to galaxies at redshifts greater than 2. Redshift is the inexorable consequence of a universe in motion. As the very fabric of space expands, the light travelling through it is stretched, its wavelength elongated until it shifts from the visible spectrum into the long, invisible reaches of the radio. A galaxy at a redshift of 2 is not merely distant in space, it is distant in time. Its light has been travelling for billions of years, a weary messenger carrying news of a world that has long since vanished or transformed. By the time this light reaches the parched earth of the Australian outback, it is so faint, so depleted of energy, that it represents a mere whisper from the dawn of existence. Herein lies the scale paradox, the central mystery that haunts the study of the heavens. In our terrestrial lives, to look further is simply to see more of the present. We look at a distant mountain and see it as it is now, but in the vastness of the cosmos, distance and time are inextricably bound. To look further into the void is synonymous with looking further back into the history of time itself. The further we reach, the deeper we sink into the past. We are trapped in a biological present, yet our eyes are capable of perceiving the ancient dead. When we observe a galaxy at the edge of the detectable universe, we are not seeing it as it exists today, if it exists at all, but as it was when the cosmos was in its infancy. We are witnesses to a ghost story written in photons. The researchers who tend to these great steel dishes are not merely astronomers, they are archaeologists of light. They do not dig through the soil of the Earth, but through the strata of the electromagnetic spectrum. They brush away the digital soot of the 21st century, the persistent static of satellites and cellular networks, to find the faint golden embers of the first great ignition. Every data point they recover is a fossil, a remnant of a star that may have long ago collapsed into a black hole or scattered its guts across the void in a supernova catastrophe. They labour in the dark, painstakingly reconstructing a lost world from the fragments of light that have survived the eons. This archaeological work is a pursuit of monumental precision. To resolve the structure of a galaxy 10 billion light-years away requires the antennas to work in a perfect synchronized symphony. They must mimic the diameter of a much larger telescope, using the rotation of the Earth itself to sweep the sky. It is a slow, methodical process, a grand mechanism of human ingenuity designed to catch the faintest tremors of the primordial gas. The hydrogen at 1.4 GHz serves as their map, tracing the invisible clouds that feed the stellar furnaces of the cosmic noon. It reveals the architecture of the early universe, showing us how the formless void began to coalesce into the complex tapestry of the large-scale structure we inhabit today. There is a profound melancholy in this endeavour. To study the cosmic noon is to realise that we have arrived late to the party. The most vibrant, productive era of the universe is already behind us. The peak of star formation has passed, and the cosmos is now in a long, slow period of cooling and decay. We are living in the twilight of a grand epoch, looking back at the midday sun of a younger, more energetic universe. The galaxies we see at redshifts greater than 2 are the vibrant ancestors of the tired red systems that now populate our local group. We are observing the universe in its prime, even as we ourselves reside in its slow descent toward entropy. And yet there is an undeniable majesty in the fact that we can see it at all. That a collection of atoms on a small rocky planet has developed the capacity to build machines that can decipher the light of the cosmic noon is perhaps the greatest miracle of all. We are the universe's way of remembering its own youth. Through our instruments, the cosmos becomes self-aware, looking back across 10 billion years to contemplate its own frantic beginning. We are the sentinels of memory, standing on the edge of the abyss, refusing to let the past fall into oblivion. As the Australia Telescope Compact Array continues its vigil, the stakes grow ever higher. The window of silence is closing, and the layers of static are becoming thicker. But for now, the archaeologists of light continue their work. They sift through the noise, searching for that 1.4 GHz signal, that sacred vibration that connects us to the first embers of the stars. They seek to understand the mechanisms of creation, to know how the silent, dark gas of the early epoch was ignited into the brilliant symphony of the cosmic noon. In doing so, they provide the context for our own existence, reminding us that we are the heirs of a vast and ancient legacy, the descendants of a fire that burned brightest when the universe was young. We are the witness, and though the light is fading, we shall continue to look until the final ember is extinguished. Yet beyond the ancient glow of dying stars and the cold migrations of hydrogen, the archaeologists of the cosmos are haunted by a different kind of ghost. While we have spent eons mapping the natural tremors of the void, there is a specialized vigil that looks for something far more elusive. It is a search not for the birth of a galaxy or the death of a sun, but for a singular act of defiance against the chaotic randomness of the universe. We are searching for a signature that cannot be written by the hand of gravity or the heat of fusion. We are searching for the narrowband signal, the digital thumbprint of an alien mind. To understand the magnitude of this search, one must first listen to the natural roar of the abyss. The cosmos is a cacophony of white noise. When a pulsar spins its dead metallic heart, it lashes the darkness with beams of radiation that smear across the electromagnetic spectrum like a frantic brush stroke. When a quasar powered by a gluttonous black hole at the centre of a distant galaxy devours a solar system, it screams across a vast range of frequencies. This is the hallmark of the natural world. It is broadband, messy, and indifferent. It is a tidal wave of energy that crashes against our antennas, covering every channel and every wavelength with a jagged, irregular static. Nature is a blunt instrument, scattering its energy with a reckless abandon that fills the tapestry of space with a meaningless hiss. But a technological signal would be different. It would be a sharp, needle-like spike in the silence. If a civilization wished to be found, or if they simply sought to communicate among their own distant outposts, they would not waste their energy by shouting across the entire spectrum. They would concentrate their power into a single, infinitesimal frequency. In the cold language of physics, this is known as a narrowband signal. It is a compressed line of light, a focused vibration that occupies only a few hertz of bandwidth. In a universe where every natural process is a wide, roaring flood, a narrowband signal is a laser-thin thread of intent. It is a deliberate compression of reality, a crystalline structure built from radio waves that could only be the product of a machine and a mind. Imagine standing on the edge of a great storm-tossed ocean during a midnight tempest. The wind howls in 1,000 different pitches, and the waves crash with a thundering, disorganized violence. This is the natural radio background of the universe. To find the fingerprint of intelligence is to hear, amidst that deafening roar, the clear and steady ringing of a single silver bell. The bell does not waver, it does not blur into the surrounding chaos. It holds its pitch with an inexorable precision that the storm cannot replicate. That tone is the artifact. It is the proof that somewhere, across the terrifying distances of the void, something has mastered the laws of electromagnetism to create a sound that nature itself is incapable of making. The search for this sharp line is perhaps the most difficult undertaking in the history of our species. To detect a narrowband signal, we must slice the radio spectrum into billions of individual channels, each one as thin as a hair. We must sift through the cosmic static with a resolution that borders on the miraculous. It is a task of monumental patience, a sentinel's watch over a desert that spans light years. We are looking for a needle in a haystack where the haystack is the size of the galaxy, and the needle is only visible for a single, fleeting moment. On the night of August 15th, 1977, we thought we had found it. At a radio telescope known as the Big Ear, located in the quiet fields of Ohio, a single 72-second burst of radio energy was recorded. It was a narrowband signal of such purity and intensity that the astronomer who discovered it, Jerry Amon, circled the data on the computer printout and wrote a single word in the margin: "Wow." It arrived at a frequency of approximately 1420 MHz, a sacred number in the cosmos. This is the frequency at which neutral hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe, naturally vibrates. It is the universal language of the stars, a landmark on the radio dial that any technological civilization would surely recognize. The WOW signal was a perfect thumbprint. It was not a pulsar, it was not a planet. It was a sharp, rising and falling arc of intensity that matched the exact motion of the telescope as it swept across the sky. For 72 seconds, the silence of the abyss was broken by a voice that seemed to speak in the precise mathematics of a machine. But then, as quickly as it had arrived, it vanished. In the decades that have followed, we have returned to that same patch of sky hundreds of times, turning our most powerful arrays toward the stars of Sagittarius, but we have found only the cold, indifferent silence of the void. The signal remains a tantalizing remnant, a ghost in the machine of our history, a reminder of how close we might be to realizing we're not alone, and how easily such a discovery can slip back into oblivion. This is the great tragedy of the search for intelligence. The universe is vast beyond all human comprehension, and time is an abyss that devours all things. To find a narrowband signal, two civilizations must not only exist in the same galaxy, but they must exist at the same moment in the eons of cosmic time, and they must be looking at each other across the correct frequency. The precision required is staggering. We are like two ships passing in a lightless ocean, each flashing a tiny lantern for only a fraction of a second, hoping to catch a glimmer of a reflection from a distant hull. And yet the search continues, fueled by a melancholic optimism that refuses to be extinguished. We build greater and more sensitive machines, such as the 500-meter aperture spherical telescope, cradled in the Green Mountains of China, or the sprawling networks of antennas in the South African desert. These are our modern cathedrals, built not to worship gods but to listen for the faint, compressed whispers of our peers. We are scanning millions of stars every hour, decomposing the light of the cosmos into its constituent parts, searching for that one sharp line that would change the trajectory of human history forever. The detection of such a signal would be the ultimate existential pivot. It would be the moment the universe ceases to be a cold, mechanical system and becomes a shared experience. To find a narrowband signal is to find a witness. It would mean that the miracle of consciousness is not a solitary flame flickering in a dark house, but a fire that has been ignited in many hearths across the spiral arms of the Milky Way. It would prove that the laws of physics are not just a set of equations that govern the decay of atoms, but a canvas upon which intelligence can write its own story. Until that day, we remain the lonely sentinels of the electromagnetic spectrum. We look out into the vast primordial dark, through the static of pulsars and the roar of the cosmic noon, searching for the digital thumbprint. We are the universe's attempt to find itself, a collection of carbon and water that has learned to build silicon ears to catch the vibrations of the eternal. We listen because the alternative is a loneliness too profound to bear. We listen because we believe that in the grand symphony of the cosmos, there is a melody intended for us to hear. Even if the signal never comes, the act of listening itself is a triumph. It is a declaration that we are here, that we are awake, and that we are waiting for a voice to answer us from the heart of the abyss. The search for the fingerprint of intelligence is our way of reaching out into the void, a tiny, defiant spark of light in a universe of shadow, refusing to believe that the silence is all there is. To confront the silence of the cosmos is to confront a wall of data so vast that it threatens to overwhelm the very intelligence seeking to understand it. This effort has manifested in the 3i Atlas survey, a digital monument of staggering proportions that represents both a triumph of human engineering and a testament to our existential desperation. This survey has painstakingly catalogued over 700,000 individual radio sources, each one a pinprick of energy in the velvet dark of the cosmos, a potential lighthouse burning in the distance of an ancient and indifferent sea. To look upon this atlas is to behold the skeletal structure of our local universe, a tapestry woven from the invisible threads of the electromagnetic spectrum, stretching across the eons toward our waiting receivers. Yet, as we descend into this forest of information, we encounter the scale paradox that defines our modern era. We often speak of finding a needle in a haystack, but the metaphor fails to capture the true cruelty of the search. In the reality of the 3i Atlas, the haystack is not composed of inert straw, but of 100 million false positives, a blinding blizzard of noise generated by our own hand. This is the tragic irony of our technological maturity. The very tools we have built to reach out into the void, our satellites, our global networks, our pocket-sized computers, have created a cacophony that drowns out the whispers of the eternal. We are like a child trying to hear a distant flute while standing in the centre of a roaring iron foundry. The abyss does not only exist between the stars, it exists in the space between the signal we seek and the electronic smog of our own making. This technological interference is an inexorable force, a byproduct of our ascent into the digital epoch. Every time a satellite passes overhead, or a television broadcast ripples through the atmosphere, it creates a ghost in the machine, a remnant of human activity that mimics the characteristics of a distant intelligence. To sift through 100 million of these phantoms requires a precision that borders on the miraculous. We are searching for a single, pure note amidst a symphony of discord, a delicate melody that has travelled through the vacuum for thousands of years, only to be buried by the trivial chatter of our own world. To overcome this, we have engineered a feat of temporal and spatial synchronization. There exists a narrow, fragile window of time, a period of exactly 36 hours, where the mechanical eyes of our world must achieve a state of perfect harmony. During this brief epoch, multiple telescopes scattered across the surface of our planet must lock their gaze upon the same patch of the void, their movements governed by the cold mathematics of celestial mechanics. They must remain perfectly synchronized, their atomic clocks ticking in a unified rhythm to capture signals during the brief, fleeting gaps in orbital transit noise. These gaps are the only moments of true silence we have left. They occur when the swarm of human-made satellites moves behind the horizon or into the shadow of the Earth, momentarily ceasing their electronic roar and allowing the primordial dark to speak. For those 36 hours, the search becomes a desperate race against the rotation of the planet and the inexorable march of our own technology. If a single telescope drifts by a fraction of a millimetre, or if the synchronization falters by a microsecond, the window slams shut, and the signal, should it exist, is lost back into the oblivion of the background radiation. It is a technical struggle of the highest order, a battle fought with algorithms and liquid-cooled processors against the entropy of the universe. We are trying to thread a needle while riding on a spinning top, hoping that for one brief moment, the mechanical heart of our civilization will beat in time with the heartbeat of the cosmos. This endeavour reveals the ruthless machine that the universe can be. It does not care for our desire to find a companion. It does not pause its cooling or its expansion to allow us a better view. The laws of physics are indifferent to our loneliness, and the geometry of space-time ensures that any message sent to us is already a relic of a vanished age. When we look at the 700,000 sources in the 3i Atlas, we are looking at the past. We are looking at light and radio waves that have survived the collapse of stars and the devouring hunger of black holes, only to arrive at a planet that is too noisy to hear them. The tragedy of the search is that we may have already received the message we long for, but it may have been discarded as just another one of the 100 million false positives, a tiny spark of intelligence mistaken for the flicker of a passing satellite. And yet, we do not turn away from the screen. We continue to refine the mechanism, to sharpen the focus of our sentinel arrays, and to pray for those 36 hours of clarity. There is a melancholic beauty in this persistence. It is the act of a species that refuses to accept its isolation. We are the witnesses of the universe, the only part of the cosmos that has developed the capacity to look back at itself and ask if there is anyone else watching. The 3i Atlas is not just a collection of data, it is a map of our hope. It is the record of our refusal to believe that the abyss is empty. As we peer into the depths of these 700,000 stars, we are reminded that the miracle of consciousness is the only thing that can transcend the cold, mechanical reality of the void. Even if the search yields nothing but more silence, the act of looking is what defines us. It is our way of unravelling the mystery of our own existence. We build our cathedrals of silicon and steel in the high deserts and the remote valleys, waiting for a sign that will never be repeated. We are the lonely probes of our own curiosity, casting our nets into an ocean of 100 million shadows, hoping to catch a single ray of truth. In the end, the search for the needle in the haystack of the Three-Eye Atlas is a reflection of the human condition. We live in a world of overwhelming noise, distracted by the trivial and the mundane, while the eternal truths of the cosmos hang silently above our heads. We are a collection of carbon and water that has learned to count the stars and measure the frequency of the void. We are a brief, ignite spark in the eons of time, a momentary flicker that dares to challenge the darkness. Whether or not we ever find that narrowband signal, the fact that we are looking at all is a triumph over the inexorable decay of the universe. We are here, we are listening, and for 36 hours, we are one with the silent symphony of the stars, waiting for a voice to join our own in the vast primordial night. This ocean of shadows suggests a deeper truth about the nature of our reality. Beyond the data points and the narrowband searches, we must confront the possibility that the universe is not a conversation, but a vast, silent archive of unsent letters. Every photon emitted by a dying star 4 billion years ago is a line of text written in a language of frequency and wavelength. These messages cross the abyss, carrying the records of ancient catastrophes and the quiet sighs of cooling planets. Yet, most of these missives find no audience. They do not arrive at a destination. They bypass the tiny rocky outposts of life and continue their journey into the oblivion of the expanding void. We are not the intended recipients of the cosmic story. We are merely accidental eavesdroppers standing in the path of a correspondence that began eons before the first ancestor of man crawled from the primordial sea. The stars do not burn for us. The fusion at the heart of a sun is not an act of creation meant to inspire poetry. It is a violent mechanical process of crushing hydrogen into helium, a struggle against gravity that will eventually be lost. When that star dies and casts its glowing shroud into the vacuum, it is not sending a warning or a legacy. It is simply undergoing a phase transition in a mindless cycle of entropy. We imbue these events with meaning because our minds are evolved to seek patterns in the chaos. We see the constellations as sentinels of the night, but they are merely distant points of fusion, separated by light years of cold, empty space, unaware of each other and utterly indifferent to the creatures who name them. This indifference is perhaps the most terrifying revelation of the modern epoch. The cosmos does not care if we decipher its codes, or if we eventually succumb to the static of our own noise. The laws of physics do not pause to accommodate our curiosity, nor do the black holes cease their inexorable hunger to respect our achievements. In this mechanical reality, we find a strange, chilling liberation. If the universe has no plan for us, then we are free from the burden of destiny. Our existence is a momentary glitch in the background radiation, a brief flicker of consciousness that illuminates a tiny corner of the tapestry before being swallowed by the eternal dark. This is the terrifying freedom of the void. We are the masters of a meaningless kingdom, and our struggle to find another voice in the silence is not a requirement of the cosmos, but a choice we make to keep the cold at bay. To understand our place in this archive, we must contemplate the scale paradox. Consider the duration of our species. From the first scratchings on a cave wall to the launch of our most sophisticated sentinel arrays, the entirety of human history spans less than 100,000 years. To the cosmos, this is not even a heartbeat. It is a single, brief pulse of a radio wave travelling across a fraction of the galaxy. If we were to map the age of the universe onto a calendar of 12 months, our entire technological civilization would occupy only the final seconds of the final hour of the final day. We are a vanishingly small disturbance in a symphony that has been playing for 13,800,000,000 years. Our greatest wars, our most profound philosophies, and our most enduring monuments are but a whisper in a hurricane of radiation and dust. The archive is not only vast in space, but also in time. Information in the universe is subject to the same decay that claims the stars. As the fabric of space-time expands, the light from the most distant galaxies is stretched until its energy is spent, turning from visible brilliance into infrared, and finally into the long, cold waves of the cosmic microwave background. These are the deleted pages of the archive. The history of the early universe is being erased even as we attempt to read it. There are parts of the cosmos that are already beyond our reach, moving away from us faster than the speed of light, their stories lost to us forever in the expanding abyss. We are living in a house where the rooms are moving apart, and the hallways are growing longer every second. The letters we do receive are often distorted or incomplete. A supernova in a distant cluster might tell us of the elements it forged in its final moments, the iron in our blood, the calcium in our bones, but it tells us nothing of the worlds that may have been incinerated in its wake. The archive records the catastrophe, but it is silent on the tragedy. It keeps the data of the flame but discards the memory of the moth. This is the ruthless machine of the cosmos. It preserves the mechanism but forgets the witness. We are the only ones who care about the meaning of the data. Without us, the universe would still be a grand and violent spectacle, but it would be a spectacle with no one in the audience, a symphony played in a vacuum where no sound can travel. We too are contributing our own unsent letters to this archive, our television broadcasts, our radar pulses, and our intentional messages to the stars are all expanding in a sphere of information away from our Earth. But like the light of the stars, these signals are subject to the same laws of decay. They will eventually become so weak that they are indistinguishable from the background hiss of the primordial explosion. In 1,000,000 years, the record of our entire civilization will be a thin, ghostly shell of electromagnetic noise travelling through the interstellar medium, likely never to be intercepted. We are writing our own history in the sand of a cosmic beach, knowing the tide is coming in. There is a melancholic optimism in this realization. If we are truly alone, and if our messages are destined to be lost in the void, then the act of sending them becomes the ultimate expression of our humanity. It is a refusal to be silenced by the vastness. We build our observatories and our transmitters not because we expect an answer, but because the act of asking is what defines our spark of life. We are the part of the universe that has learned to protest against the darkness. We are the curators of a small and fragile museum of thought, situated on a pale blue dot in a gallery of giants. As we look out at the 700,000 sources in our surveys, we should see them not just as targets for discovery, but as fellow inhabitants of the archive. Each one is a potential letter, a potential story, drifting in the same current of time that carries us toward oblivion. Whether they contain life, or are merely the cold remnants of stellar evolution, they are part of the same tapestry. We are bound to them by the same laws of physics and the same inevitable decay. In the face of this overwhelming scale, our petty divisions and our earthly preoccupations seem like the noise of a single grain of sand in a desert. The archive of the universe is silent, but it is not empty. It is filled with the echoes of everything that has ever been and the seeds of everything that will ever be. To be a witness to this vastness is a rare and fleeting privilege. We are the eyes of the cosmos, looking back at the long road of eons that led to this moment. Even if we are just a momentary glitch, we are a glitch that can perceive the beauty of the machine. We are the ones who read the unsent letters and find within them a reason to keep looking, to keep listening, and to keep marvelling at the sheer, improbable fact of our own existence. In the end, the silence of the universe is not a wall, but a mirror, reflecting our own longing back at us from the depths of the eternal night. This profound silence is not a void to be feared, but a sanctuary. We find ourselves living in a rare and fragile window of cosmic history, a brief interval of quietude that has allowed us to pause our struggle for survival and listen. To understand the magnitude of this gift, one must look back across the 4,500,000,000 years of our planet's existence. For the vast majority of that time, the Earth was a theatre of geological violence and biological desperation. There was no room for contemplation when the skies were choked with the debris of formation, or when the oceans were battlegrounds for the first primitive shadows of life. We are the beneficiaries of a momentary lull in the storm. We have been granted a few precious decades of stillness, a temporal clearing in the forest of eons, where the static of the local environment has dimmed enough for us to perceive the greater reality beyond our atmosphere. This quietude is the essential requirement for the witness. In the grand architecture of the cosmos, we serve a role that transcends our biological origins. We are the eyes through which the universe gazes upon its own reflection. We are the ears that catch the dying echoes of the first light. Without a consciousness to perceive it, the most magnificent supernova is merely a rearrangement of plasma, a sterile exchange of energy that leaves no mark upon the soul of the void. It is our gaze that transforms a sequence of physical events into a narrative. It is our curiosity that turns the cold, inexorable grinding of gravity and entropy into a story worth telling. This is the ultimate purpose of human consciousness. We are the curators of the abyss, the ones who assign value to a reality that is otherwise indifferent to its own existence. To fulfill this role, we have constructed monuments that are as fragile as they are ambitious. Across the high, arid plains and within the deepest, most secluded valleys, we have built massive ears of steel and wire. These radio telescopes, these vast skeletal dishes of silver and aluminum, are our primary tools of defiance. They represent a collective refusal to be consumed by the chaos of our own making. While we continue to struggle on the surface of this world, divided by borders, distracted by the noise of our own technologies, and haunted by the spectre of our own mortality, these instruments look upward. They are the physical manifestations of our longing. When we point a 300-meter dish toward the center of the galaxy, we are making a profound affirmation. We are declaring that there is something in the dark worth hearing. We are asserting that the signals travelling through the vacuum, however faint or garbled, possess a significance that outweighs the clamour of our daily lives. This act of listening is a form of resistance against the encroaching static. Our modern world is a cacophony of short-lived signals. We are surrounded by the frantic pulse of global commerce, the roar of combustion, and the ceaseless chatter of a billion digital voices. It is a dense fog of information that threatens to drown out the fundamental truths of our existence. But the witness persists. By building these cathedrals of science, we create a space where the universe can be heard. We filter out the noise of our own petty squabbles to focus on the arrival of photons that have travelled for 10 billion years to find us. There is a deep, almost religious gratitude that should accompany this realization. We are alive at the exact moment when we have the tools to see back to the beginning of time. We are the first generation of our species to hold the map of the entire observable cosmos in our hands, and perhaps the last to enjoy the luxury of a quiet planet from which to study it. The concept of the witness, or the one who observes, is the only thing that saves the universe from being a grand, meaningless machine. Imagine a clock that keeps perfect time for an eternity, but has no face and no hands. It ticks in the darkness, precise and relentless. But no one ever knows what hour it is. Such a universe would be a tragedy of wasted potential. By evolving into the role of the witness, we provide the clock with its face. We interpret the ticking. We find the rhythm in the pulsars and the melody in the cosmic microwave background. We are the ones who recognize that the decay of a single atom and the collision of two galaxies are part of the same seamless tapestry. This recognition is not a passive act. It is an active contribution to the cosmos. We are the part of the system that gives the system a reason to be. Yet, we must also acknowledge the inherent melancholy of our position. To be the witness is to be aware of the inevitable end. We see the expansion of the universe as a slow, inexorable unravelling. We understand that the stars we study are fuel-starved engines destined for oblivion. We know that the very instruments we use to listen will eventually crumble into dust, and the data they collected will be lost to the increasing entropy of the deep future. Our role as the witness is a temporary appointment. We are like travellers standing on a high peak, catching one last glimpse of a beautiful valley before the sun sets and the fog rolls in forever. But the fact that the sunset will end does not make it less beautiful. On the contrary, the fleeting nature of our observation is what gives it such staggering weight. This is the defiance of the human spirit. We know that the void is vast and that the static is coming. We know that our fighting world often seems determined to deafen itself, and yet we continue to build our ears of steel. We continue to spend our limited time and resources to understand the nature of dark matter, or the birth of the first stars. We do this because the act of witnessing is an affirmation of life itself. It is a way of saying that even if we are small, our reach is infinite. Even if we are mortal, our thoughts can span the eons. We are the bridge between the mindless laws of physics and the world of meaning. As we look into the abyss, we should not see a terrifying emptiness, but an invitation. We are the ones who have been chosen by the blind processes of evolution to stand as the sentinels of the truth. Every time a scientist deciphers a new signal from the depths of space, or a poet finds words for the majesty of the night sky, the universe becomes a little less lonely. We are the ones who break the silence. In the vast, cold mechanism of the cosmos, we are the warm spark of appreciation. We are the ones who care about the ending of the story. And in that caring, in that profound and desperate gratitude for the chance to listen, we find the ultimate justification for our existence. We are the witness, and for as long as we remain, the universe is not truly silent. It is a symphony, and we are the audience it waited 13,800,000,000 years to find. But even the most attentive audience must eventually leave the theatre. The lights will dim, not by design, but by the slow and inexorable exhaustion of the very laws that permitted our arrival. We must look now toward the deep future, an epoch so distant that the entirety of human history appears as nothing more than a microscopic flicker in the long dark night of the cosmos. As we peer into this final horizon, we see the end of the witness and the return of a silence that is truly absolute. The first to surrender will be our artifacts. In the coming millennia, the grand monuments of our civilization will succumb to the patient teeth of chemistry and gravity. The great radio telescopes, those metallic ears that once strained to hear the whispers of the primordial past, will buckle under their own weight. The steel will rust, the concrete will crumble into fine dust, and the glass lenses that once focused the light of ancient quasars will be ground into sand by the shifting winds of a changing planet. Our satellites, those silent sentinels orbiting in the void, will experience the drag of the thin upper atmosphere or the bombardment of solar radiation until their circuits fail and their orbits decay. They will fall as streaks of fire through a sky that no one is watching, their data lost forever to the abyss of heat and friction. The signals we sent out, the radio waves and television broadcasts that carry the echoes of our music and our wars, will continue to expand in a great sphere, but they will grow weaker with every passing light year. They will be stretched by the expansion of space, their frequencies lowering until they are indistinguishable from the background static of the universe. To any distant civilization, we will become a ghost story told in the language of mathematics, a momentary fluctuation in the entropy of the local cluster that was quickly smoothed away by the ruthless machine of time. In the far future, perhaps 1 billion years from now, the sun will have grown so luminous that the oceans of Earth will have boiled away. The cradle of life will become a scorched and airless rock, a testament to the fact that the cosmos does not provide permanent sanctuary. It is here that the cosmic letter from the sculptor galaxy finally arrives. This stream of photons, having travelled across millions of light years of empty space, will finally wash over the surface of our world. It carries news of a stellar nursery, the chemical signature of a newborn star, and the promise of a world that might have been. But there is no one left to receive the mail. The signal strikes the barren soil and the jagged remnants of our mountain ranges, but there is no consciousness to interpret the data. There is no mind to feel the awe. The universe has sent its most beautiful poem to an empty room. As the eons continue to stack upon one another, the stars themselves begin to fail. This is the era of the final fade, where the celestial tapestry begins to unravel. The galaxy, once a brilliant spiral of neon blue and vibrant gold, becomes a graveyard of red dwarfs and white dwarfs. These stellar remnants linger for trillions of years, glowing with a faint dying ember of heat. But eventually, even they must turn cold. The hydrogen that fueled the first generation of suns is exhausted. The mechanism of star formation grinds to a halt. One by one, the lights of the universe go out. The constellations that once inspired our myths and guided our ships are extinguished, leaving behind a void that is both vast and eternal. In this deep future, the very concept of matter begins to dissolve. If the theories of proton decay hold true, then even the atoms that once made up our bodies, our cathedrals and our dreams will eventually disintegrate. The universe becomes a thin soup of leptons and photons, drifting through a space that is expanding at an ever-accelerating rate. The distances between these lone particles become so immense that they can never interact again. Each photon is trapped in its own private horizon, a solitary prisoner in an infinite and dark cell. This is the heat death of the universe, the state of maximum entropy where no more work can be performed, no more information can be stored, and no more life can exist. It is the ultimate silence. Looking at this inevitable conclusion, one might feel a sense of profound despair. What was the point of the struggle? Why did we build our telescopes and write our symphonies if the end result is a cold and mindless oblivion? This is where we reach the existential pivot. To look upon the end of all things is not an invitation to nihilism, but a call to a more intense and desperate gratitude. The very fact that we are here now, in this brief window of light between two eternities of darkness, is a miracle of staggering proportions. We are the part of the universe that got to look back at the beginning. We are the fleeting spark of appreciation in a mechanism that is otherwise blind. For one brief moment spanning a few million years, the universe was not just a collection of colliding atoms and warping space-time. It was a story. It was a place where things mattered. We gave names to the stars. We measured the speed of a light. We felt the sting of loss and the warmth of discovery. We were the ones who took the raw, cold data of the cosmos and turned it into meaning. The melancholic optimism of our position lies in the realization that while our signal will eventually vanish, the fact that we sent it can never be undone. Even when the Earth is dust and the sun is a cold cinder, the truth remains that for a short time, the void was interrupted. The silence was broken. We were the witnesses who saw the sunset and understood its beauty before the night claimed it. We are the ones who listened to the symphony, even if we were only allowed to hear a single bar of the music. As we look up at the night sky tonight, we are not just looking at distant points of light. We are looking at our own history and our own future. We are the sentinels of a precious and fragile flame. The stars will die, the galaxies will drift apart, and the darkness will eventually win. But until that day comes, we will continue to watch. We will continue to wonder. We will continue to be the bridge between the primordial past and the infinite future. In the face of the eternal silence, we offer our voices. In the face of the abyss, we offer our understanding. We were here. We saw. And in that seeing, we made the universe whole. The message from the sculptor galaxy may eventually fall on a silent world, but it does not matter. The message was sent, and for one glorious, brief and beautiful moment, there was someone here to say that it was received. We have been the audience for 13,800,000,000 years, and the performance was worth every second of the wait. The curtains are closing, the light is fading, but the memory of the light is our eternal legacy. We go now into the dark, not with fear, but with the quiet satisfaction of those who have seen the truth and found it magnificent.